It's hard to point out a single mistake that led the Clippers to this situation because each step seemed reasonable at the time. Trading Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and many draft picks for Paul George might look bad now, but it made the Clippers a championship favorite back then. Even bringing in James Harden made sense since they already had two aging All-Stars. If there was ever a time to invest in the present, it was then. Kawhi Leonard had played 32 out of 36 games when they extended his contract, averaging almost 24 points on impressive shooting stats for a team that was 23-13. Letting Paul George leave after the way last season ended also seemed logical. The team in January looked far stronger than the team in April, especially as the new CBA rules were hitting the league hard. While not perfect, the Clippers' decision-making process was mostly sound. They made an aggressive 5-year push for a championship, and even though they didn't win it all, they did show championship-level performance at times. They managed their resources well and went after the right type of players. Their plan didn't fail due to a lack of strategy, it just didn't work out. One of the three stars who was supposed to lead them to a title is now with the Philadelphia 76ers. The star they got from the 76ers struggled to shoot even 39% after the All-Star break. And Leonard, their best player, seems too injured to ever fully return to form. Whatever led the Clippers here, the result is clear: this era of Clippers basketball is over. There's no clever way to turn things around quickly. They won't be able to rally with their role players, have Leonard miraculously recover in a few weeks, and then pull off a trade for an undervalued star like Zach LaVine or Brandon Ingram. This version of the Clippers is done. They are going to have a bad season, not bad enough to get a top pick like Cooper Flagg, but likely bad enough to send a high single-digit pick to Oklahoma City. It will be embarrassing, and there's little the Clippers can do to stop that. But this is a team known for having a plan, and even if they can't salvage the present season without a miracle, their front office isn't going to spend the next half-decade stuck at the bottom. The Clippers are working towards something for the future. They wouldn't have let George walk for free if they didn't have some longer-term strategy in mind. So the big question is, how do they dig themselves out of this mess? It won't be easy. Most of the assets a typical team uses for a rebuild are already in the hands of Oklahoma City and Philadelphia. The Clippers can't tank their way out of this, and they don't have notable young talent or first-round picks available until 2030. Trading Leonard for assets seems unlikely, as no team is going to gamble $50 million on an injury-prone player under the current CBA, or even healthier players like Brandon Ingram struggle to generate interest due to contract concerns. This won't be a traditional teardown. It will have to be more like the late 2010s Brooklyn Nets rebuild, where they slowly worked their way back by making smart moves on the margins and positioning themselves for a future star acquisition. They won't be able to draft a star until 2030, but there are ways to land an older one sooner. The Milwaukee Bucks approach might be a useful example. After trading for Jrue Holiday in 2020, the Bucks were seen as having limited assets. But a few years later, they traded for Damian Lillard, largely because their draft picks had replenished over time. Teams can only trade picks 7 years out, so Milwaukee's picks for 2028, 2029, and 2030 became available, which wasn't the case during the Holiday trade. The Clippers could follow a similar path, waiting for their 2030 and 2031 picks to become tradable, and by 2026, they could package those with swaps to make a stronger offer for a star. By the time Leonard's contract expires in 2027, his expiring deal could also become valuable in trade discussions. Leonard, along with Ivica Zubac, Derrick Jones Jr., and Kobe Brown, is one of the few players under contract for 2026 to 27. With the salary cap expected to rise by 10% annually, the Clippers could create a lot of cap space for a big move in free agency if they avoid adding long-term deals between now and then. But who could they target? Free agency hasn't been the main way stars change teams recently. Many stars re-sign with their current teams and then demand a trade, ensuring financial security while still moving. However, the new second apron in the CBA is making these kinds of trades difficult for expensive teams, so we might see stars shift towards signing with more flexible teams in free agency.
The Clippers' past could be a guide for their future here. In 2019, they signed George at a time when free agency was still a big deal. When George tried to get traded to Golden State in 2024, financial issues prevented a deal, but when he signed with the 76ers outright, it went smoothly. This might become the new normal, stars choosing free agency over complicated trades. The 2026 free agent class could be a great opportunity, with players like Luka Doncic, Trae Young, De'Aaron Fox, and Kristaps Porzingis potentially hitting the market. Not all of them will be available, but even one or two could change a franchise. Los Angeles has always been an attractive destination for free agents, and by that time, the Clippers could have the cap space and assets to make a big move, just like they did in 2019. While the exact details are uncertain, this approach seems like the Clippers' best bet for a quick return to relevance. If they are patient and navigate the next few years wisely, they could be back in playoff contention before the end of the decade. Considering their current situation, this is the most realistic plan worth pursuing.